Welcome, Citadini. You have arrived at the right place. I have been expecting you, and not all who enter leave unchanged. My name is Kiran Mai, and it means the one who is filled with light. But you can just call me Kiran. I obviously carry a light within me, and now I decided to shine my light into the dark corners of the world and see what's actually there. What do you think is the most common thing in the world? Something that everyone has, something that every place, every path, every living and even non living being carries within them. We run from it all the time, not knowing that we end up running to it eventually. Because you cannot outrun what lives inside of you. There really is no escaping it if you ask me. And yes, I am talking about grief. I am talking about mourning, about the pain and loss which never seems to end. Trust me, grief is not the opposite of love. It is love, just with nowhere left to go. In this series, I want to share my travel stories where I explore places where the unthinkable has happened. Places filled with grief, loss, and pain. But the world quietly moved on. Some people visit cities to see the monuments, but I visit them to listen to the lost souls. Because somebody has to. Because if I don't, then who will? Let's talk about the places where that grief and injustice still lingers in the air, but no one stops to notice. Let's mourn the losses that were forgotten, never spoken about, and never truly cared for. Because I'm not here to make peace with the past, I'm here to confront it. I want the discomfort, I want the questions, cause maybe I'm not sad enough yet. As the kids these days say, I don't want peace, I want problems. Welcome to the journey of the morning map. This is your host Kiran, and let's begin collecting one tear at a time. As Dag Hammarskjöld once said, we are not permitted to choose the frame of our destiny, but what we put into it is ours. This episode is dedicated to everyone who suffered what no one should ever suffer, to everyone carrying that weight, to those who have been broken by forces beyond their control, yet still chose to transform that breaking into something sacred, into a ritual, into remembrance, and into love. You did not choose what happened to you, but what you make of it now, that is entirely, fiercely, and beautifully yours. I want to ask you something before we begin. Have you ever walked into a place and just felt it? In the weight of your own footsteps, in the way the streets are just a little too quiet for how many people once screamed in them. I have. And it gave me a feeling in the ways I was not prepared for. What do you do when the thing that keeps trying to kill you is also the thing keeping you alive? I am not speaking philosophically. Well, maybe a little. But I am also speaking literally. Because there is a city in Sicily, in the south of Italy, sitting right at foot of one of the most active volcanoes on the entire planet. A volcano that has erupted over 200 times in recorded history. A volcano that buried entire neighborhoods, swallowed churches, reached the sea, killed tens of thousands. And those people never left. They rebuilt and rebuilt and rebuilt again on the same ground from the same black volcanic stone that destroyed them. They literally made their cathedral out of the lava rock. There is something about people who look at the thing that destroyed them and say, fine, I will make something beautiful out of you. Today, we are collecting tears from one of the most beautiful and the most battered cities in the world, Catania. Catania is a vibrant port city on the eastern coast of Sicily. It has magnificent Baroque architecture, all built in the 1700s, glowing gold and black in the Mediterranean light. The fish market is extraordinary, and you must try the arancini and the pasta alla norma, which is named after a famous opera written by a Catanian composer named Vincenzo Bellini. You know, the black volcanic stone those gorgeous churches are built from, the same stone you see in every piazza, every fountain, every cobbled road, is lava. It's solidified lava from the eruptions that destroyed them. Beneath those streets, archaeologists keep finding the ruins of older Catanias, each one buried by the next disaster, one on top of the other, like layers of unresolved grief. Catania is not just a city, it is a city built on its own tombstones. I must tell you about a young woman. and she is the soul of everything that follows. Her name is Agatha, and she lived in Catania in the year 231 CE, about 1800 years ago. She was young, she was from a noble family, and she refused a man who had power over her life. She had taken a religious vow of virginity, you see, like a formal Christian commitment, almost like becoming a consecrated nun. She was refusing him for God, not just for herself. His name was Quintianus. He was the Roman governor of the region. He wanted her. She said no. And when powerful men in history are told no by women with no legal resource, you already know how this goes. He had her sent to a brothel. When that failed to break her, she was tortured. Her breasts were cut off. She was rolled over burning coals. She was thrown back into the prison and she died there, in the dark, alone, in the year 251 CE. The reason she refused almost doesn't matter as much as the fact that she did. What matters is what happened because she refused. That a no from a powerless young woman was met with the full force of a Roman state. Brothels, torture, mutilation, prison, and death. And then a city named itself after her grief for 18 centuries. That is the story. Not why she said no, but that she did and what it cost her, and that somehow, impossibly, she became the one with the power in the end. Now, here is where the story stops being history and starts becoming something else entirely. 1 year after her death, exactly 1 year, Mount Etna erupted. And the people of Catania took her veil, the cloth she had been buried with, and they carried it towards the lava flow. And according to every version of the legend that I could find, the lava stopped. You can believe that or not believe that, but I want you to sit with what it means that people chose to do what they did. A city terrified, facing a force of nature with no tools and no warnings, and the only thing they could reach for was the memory of a woman who had been failed by every human institution that was supposed to protect her. And they had to do this because each one of them knew the injustice that was done to her. They knew that their sins will never be atoned. So they made her their patron saint. Every single year on February 5th, they celebrate St. Agatha's feast day. Over 100,000 people take to the streets of Catania in what is one of the largest religious processions in the entire world. They carry enormous silver candelabras that weigh 300 kilos each. They wear white robes, they weep, they sing, they shout, Cittadini, viva Saint Agatha! Citizens, long live Saint Agatha! A city that had survived everything, they process in the streets every year, crying for a girl who had died in prison 1800 years ago. Do you know? Saint Agatha is the patron saint not only of Catania, but also of breast cancer and bell founders. The connection between Saint Agatha and bells is exactly as darkly ironic as it sounds. Because her breasts were cut off during her torture, she is depicted in art and iconography holding them on a plate. And the rounded shape of a bell looks similar enough that the bell founders adopted her as their patron saint. Let me tell you about Etna properly. Mount Etna is approximately 3,000 meters tall. It has been erupting continuously for about 500,000 years. It is the most active volcano in the entire Europe, and it sits just 11 kilometers from the center of Catania. 11 kilometers. Now, on March 11, 1669, a fissure cracked open on Etna's southern flank. What came out of it was not a dramatic explosion, it was worse. It was a lava river. A slow, unstoppable 2 kilometers wide river of lava that crept towards Catania for 122 days. 4 months of watching it come. Can you imagine standing on your roof every morning for 4 months and watching a wall of fire get slightly closer? And you cannot outrun it because it is your entire world. Your home, your crops, your animals, your grandmother's grave, they're all there. The lava buried entire western neighborhoods. It entered the harbor. It literally extended the Catanian coastline 700 meters further into the sea. Over a dozen towns were completely erased. Approximately 20,000 people died, not just from lava, but from the famine and displacement that followed. There is a farmer named Diego Pappalardo who gathered 50 volunteers and they did something no one had ever tried before in recorded history. They attempted to redirect a lava flow with iron rods and sheer determination. They broke open the hardened crust of lava river to release the pressure and change its direction. It was working. The flow began to shift. And then the residents of neighboring town of Paterno showed up, armed, because the redirected lava would have hit their town instead. They chased Diego and his 50 men away at Sword Point, and the lava continued into Catania. Diego Pappalardo is now credited with attempting the first lava direction in history, but Catania still burned. 300 years later, scientists did the exact same thing as Diego, but they had to use helicopters, armies, and 7,000 kilograms of explosives and barely saved one town with only 850 meters to spare. Looks like the volcano is still winning. Humanity is just getting slightly better at arguing with it. If you think the disaster has passed, think again. Now, I want you to imagine it is 9th of January, 1693, evening, you're in Catania. The ground shakes, not enormously, just enough to terrify. A foreshock. People rush out of their homes, they sleep in the streets in the cold because going back inside feels dangerous. 2 days later, January 11th, 9 in the morning, the main earthquake strikes, magnitude 7.4, the strongest earthquake in Italian recorded history. Catania, a city of approximately 20,000 people, was destroyed in minutes. Not damaged, destroyed. The Viceroy of Sicily, writing to the King of Spain, used exactly these words: Catania no longer exists. 16,000 people died out of 20,000. Think about that ratio. 8 out of every 10 people gone in minutes while the sun is still rising. Across eastern Sicily, nearly 60 towns were similarly obliterated. Estimates of the total death toll range from 54,000 to 100,000 people. The true number will never be known because in many places there was simply no one left to count. Survivors described stumbling through what had been a city and finding nothing: a flat field of rubble, dust, and silence. The churches collapsed, the palaces collapsed, the narrow streets that had existed since Greek and Roman times gone. And here is what breaks me every time I think of it. The earthquake struck on January 11th, and the feast of St. Agatha is 5th of Feb. For the people who survived, what was left of the city had to somehow hold itself together and find a way to honor their patrons in just 25 days after the worst morning of their lives. And they did. They held the procession in the rubble. 25 days is all they had to grieve before they had to show up again. 25 days to bury 16,000 people and still find the strength to walk. It's almost like ritual is what humans invented so that grief wouldn't have to be carried alone. Let me tell you something. The 1693 earthquake is why Catania looks the way it does today. The city was rebuilt over the next 30 years in the Baroque style of that era: ornate, dramatic, and theatrical. The UNESCO World Heritage Architecture that tourists photograph every day exists because everyone who built the previous city was dead. The beauty you see is built directly on top of 16,000 graves. I have to tell you something that most people do not know: the Black Death. The plague that killed between 30 and 60% of Europe's entire population in the 14th century, its first point of arrival in Europe was Sicily. 12 Genoese trading ships docked at the port of Messina, 30 kilometers north of Catania, in October 1347. When port authorities boarded those ships, they found most of the sailors dead. The ones still alive were covered in black swellings the size of eggs in the groin, in their armpits, oozing blood and pus. The ships were immediately ordered out of the harbor. It was too late. Within weeks, the disease was spreading through Sicily. Catania initially tried to close its gates to the refugees from Messina. It didn't matter. the plague came anyway. When you walk through Catania on a fine morning, and you must at least once in your lifetime, the fish market, the pescaria, will be in full chaos. Men shouting prices, swordfish laid out on the ice, the smell of seas everywhere. Life will be loud and relentless. And right behind the market, you can see the ancient lava rock wall that has overwhelmed by the 1669 eruption. Still there, still black. The city just built around it, incorporated it. The destruction became a feature of the architecture. I walked to the Piazza del Duomo, the main cathedral square. The cathedral itself is dedicated to Saint Agatha. In the front of it stands Catania's symbol, a lava stone elephant carrying an Egyptian obelisk on its back. An elephant made of volcanic rock carrying a weight it did not choose to carry. The city chose that as its symbol. Think about that for a second. They could have chosen anything, right? A phoenix rising from the ashes, that would have been the obvious choice if you ask me, the triumphant one. But they chose an elephant made of the very material that has tried to kill them, carrying a burden but still walking. I stood in that piazza for a long time, and then I noticed underneath the piazza, accessible through a small entrance in the side, are the ruins of the Roman amphitheater. And beneath that, the ruins of Greek Catan, and beneath that, the volcanic strata from eruptions even older than recorded memory. The city is not built on history, the city is built inside it, layer after layer, each one a civilization that was buried and left behind. When you have been destroyed these many times, perhaps you cannot afford to stop. I also heard some whispers going around. They say that on 4th of February 1169, the eve of St. Agatha's feast day, a catastrophic earthquake struck Catania. The cathedral collapsed, killing the Bishop John of Hilo and 44 monks, and many others who were crowded into the building for the feast of St. Agatha. So the people had gathered in her cathedral on the night before her feast day to honor the saint who was supposed to protect them, and the cathedral fell on top of them. The faithful gathered inside the cathedral for the celebration of St. Agatha were buried alive. The legends also say that when King Frederick II ordered the destruction of Catania in 1232, he attended Mass in the cathedral and miraculously found text appearing before his eyes. Do not offend the country of Agatha, for she avenges injuries. He apparently revoked the destruction order immediately. That inscription, offend not the country of Agatha, for she is the avenger of any injustice, is still carved into the cathedral's northern baroque window in Latin, Nopaqui. And yet, on the night her own people gathered in her own house to honor her, the roof came down. Irony is, the city believes she stops lava flows, she stops mad kings, but the earthquake came anyway. On the most sacred night, in the most sacred place. It's almost like staking a claim, don't you think? Like Saint Agatha is saying that the city is mine to withhold and the city is mine to destroy. What do you do with a protector who protects selectively? Let me tell you about the last catastrophe for now, World War II. Fast forward to 1943, July, the Allied forces, American and British troops, are invading Sicily as part of Operation Husky. And Catania, by terrible geographical luck, sits directly in the part of the British advance. And the Allied bombers came, civilians fled, some went to the countryside, some went into the lava tubes of Mount Etna, the ancient underground tunnels carved by centuries of volcanic activity, and hid there in the dark while bombs fell on them. Let me say that again. The people of Catania, fleeing bombs dropped by the nations that were coming to liberate them, hid inside the volcano that had been trying to kill them for 2000 years. The city finally fell to British forces on August 5, 1943, 5 weeks after the invasion began. By then, large portions of the city that had survived Etna, that had survived the earthquake, that had survived centuries of God's wrath, conquest, and plague had been reduced to rubble again, and they rebuilt again. The question I keep coming back to, why does a human being, a rational, feeling, suffering human being, look at a mountain that has been trying to kill their family for generations and decide to stay? Because the volcano is also the reason the soil is extraordinarily fertile. Because the same lava that destroys produces the richest agricultural land in Europe. The grapes, the citrus, the pistachios, the food that makes Sicilian cuisine what it is, grows in the volcanic soil. The thing that keeps trying to kill you is also the thing that's feeding you. What do you do with that? What do you do when your survival and your destruction come from the same source? I think you build a cathedral out of the lava stone. I think you make an elephant your symbol. I think you invent a saint who stops the fire with a piece of cloth because you need to believe that something human can hold back something that enormous. And I think maybe you process through the streets every year weeping for a girl who died in the prison cell because grief has to go somewhere. Because if you are a city that has been destroyed over and over and over again, and you cannot leave, and you cannot fight the volcano, and you cannot change the geology beneath you, then maybe the only thing you can do is feel it completely, publicly, together. Maybe the procession of Saint Agatha is not really about Saint Agatha. Maybe it is about every single person this city has ever lost, and it just needed a face. Catania proves that history doesn't just live in the books, it lives in the ground beneath your feet. It lives in the architecture that replaced what was destroyed. So, the next time you walk through a beautiful piazza, through a sun drenched southern city, through a place that feels alive and loud and unafraid, ask yourself, what is it built on? Ask yourself how many times it had to be remade before it looked this effortless. Because some cities are not beautiful despite their suffering, they are beautiful because of it, in spite of it, through it. Catania lost thousands to a volcano, tens of thousands to an earthquake, a third of its population to plague. It was bombed in a war fought to free it. It had been conquered by Greeks, Romans, Arabs, Normans, Aragonese, Spanish, and German. But it is still there, still loud, still building. A city that says, we remember, even when we move forward, we remember. They never left. And I want to ask you, what do you love that much? What would make you stay even if the world around you is burning? Because here is what Catania taught me. You can grieve without shattering. You can carry loss and still walk through a market in the morning, still taste something good, still laugh at something small. You can happily, fully love the people and the places you have lost. Because love and grief, they are never two different things, remember? They are the same feeling, just at different times. If this made you feel something, I want you to remember where it came from and stay there for a while. Get comfortable in it. Let it hold you in a loving embrace and soothe you. I will leave you with that thought because that is the whole point of this podcast. If this stayed with you, share it, think about it, ask your own questions. Signing off until my next year finds you, the one who is filled with light. Find me on Instagram and my personal blog, both named The Morning Map. More words, more light waiting for you there.